In response to the First Libyan Civil War's developments, a multi-state NATO-led coalition launched a military intervention in Libya on March 19, 2011, to put UN Security Council Resolution 1973 into effect. The UN Security Council sought to impose an immediate ceasefire in Libya, including an end to the current attacks against civilians, which it said might constitute crimes against humanity, as well as tighter sanctions on the Muammar Qadhafi regime and its supporters. All flights were prohibited from entering the country's airspace. But 10 votes in favor and 5 abstentions, this objective was accomplished. Blue indicates the countries that took part in creating the no-fly zone over Libya, colored in green. While the French Air Force, British Royal Air Force, and Royal Canadian Air Force flew sorties over Libya and coalition forces imposed a naval blockade, French jets carried out airstrikes against Libyan army tanks and vehicles. There were no outside ground troops used in the operation. The Libyan government's response to the campaign was completely ineffective despite Gaddafi's forces possessing 30 heavy SAM batteries, 17 medium SAM batteries, 55 light SAM batteries, 400 to 450 launchers including 130 to 152 K-12 Cub launchers and some 9 K-33 OSA launchers, 440 to 600 short-range air defense guns, and more. The official names for the interventions by the coalition members are Operation Harmattan for France, Operation Ellamy for the United Kingdom, Operation Mobile for Canada's participation, and Operation Odyssey Dawn for the United States. Italy originally opposed the intervention but eventually accepted to participate under the condition that NATO, not individual nations, would be in charge of the operation, particularly France. Once this necessity was ultimately met, Italy gave the Allies access to its bases and intelligence. From the beginning of the operation, the original coalition of Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Italy, Norway, Qatar, Spain, UK, and US grew to 19 nations, with new members primarily enforcing the naval blockade and no-fly zone or providing military logistical support. The United States initially shared command of the operation with France, the United Kingdom, and Canada. The NATO-led Operation Unified Protector took control of the arms embargo on March 23. The governments of France, Germany, and Turkey initially resisted attempts to coordinate the military command of the air campaign while retaining political and strategic command with a select few. On March 24, NATO agreed to take over management of the no-fly zone while coalition forces continue to be in charge of striking ground groups. Although they might require additional assistance to impose a more comprehensive no-fly zone, France and the UK were among the first nations to advocate for one and had the air power to do so over the rebel-held regions. Early March saw the start of first NATO preparations for a possible no-fly zone, primarily by NATO members France and the United Kingdom. The US possessed the air power required to impose a no-fly zone, but it hesitated to do so until it had a legal justification for infringing on Libya's sovereignty. In addition, the US wanted Arab involvement in the implementation of a no-fly zone owing to the delicate nature of military action by the US against an Arab country. Robert Gates, the Secretary of Defense for the United States, said during a congressional hearing that a no-fly zone begins with an attack on Libya to destroy the air defenses, and then you can fly planes around the country and not worry about our guys being shot down. But that's the way it starts. The deployment of French fighter planes over Libya started on March 19, and other nations also started their own operations at that time. Phase 1 began on the same day with participation from the US, UK, France, Italy, and Canada. At a meeting of NATO members to settle differences over whether military operations in Libya should include attacks on ground forces, the decision was made on March 24 by NATO ambassadors. This agreement established a two-level power structure. NATO would be in charge of enforcing the no-fly zone, while the group of states previously involved would continue to be in charge of other military operations. All the nations involved in enforcing the no-fly zone were represented on a committee headed by NATO that was in charge of political decisions, but NATO alone was in charge of military action. Lieutenant General Charles Bouchard of the Royal Canadian Air Force has been selected to lead the NATO military mission. The NATO operation was set to terminate on October 31 after the murder of Muammar Qadhafi on October 20, 2011. Major water facilities were targeted and Qadhafi was then held responsible. By bombing vital state-owned water facilities, notably a water pipe facility in Brega, NATO really crippled Libya's water supply. The factory produced pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipes for the Great Man-Made River GMR project, an ingenious irrigation system that transports water from aquifers beneath Libya's southern desert to about 70% of the population. The factory was one of only two in the nation, with the other one being in Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. On July 18, a rebel leader bragged that some of Gaddafi's soldiers had taken refuge in Brega industrial buildings, but that rebels had cut off their access to water, meaning they would be unable to sleep. In other words, the GMR water pipeline into Brega had been damaged by the rebels and not Gaddafi supporters. NATO then bombed the Brega water pipe plant on July 22 under the guise that it was a Gaddafi military storage site hiding rocket launchers. The project's manager, Abdul Hakim El-Shwedi, said that major components of the facility have been destroyed. Future ventures may suffer significant setbacks. Attackmas is a legitimate military target and spares it. NATO officers remained silent when pressed to present specific proof that Gaddafi supporters were shooting from within the water pipe facility. Instead, the BM-21 rocket launcher that had been discovered nearby the site days before was still there and undamaged the next day, according to NATO satellite photographs that were made available to the media. So much crap doesn't stack up here. Read a Stratfor email. Leaked emails from the U.S. intelligence contractor Stratfor, which publicly backed these sources, reveal that the company privately questioned its own assertions. Pro-rebel sources have sought to attribute the interruption of Libya's water supply to Gaddafi loyalists. In an email to management, Bayless Parsley, a Middle East analyst for Stratfor, said, "So much crap doesn't match up here. I need to be very clear about how conflicting all the material is on this project since many of the conclusions reached from it are not actually airtight. I am pretty much not confident in any of the sources. Nevertheless, the private U.S. intelligence agency, which has been crucial in coordinating with top Pentagon officials to facilitate military intelligence operations, was well aware of what the GMR's closure would entail for the people of Libya. The population of Libya has doubled since the river's initial phase of construction in 1991. If the river were to disappear, however, there would probably be a very quick natural adjustment to normal carrying capabilities." A director of research at Stratfor quipped, "How frequently do Libyans bathe? You're drinking water for a month if you missed a shower. Cut down on the showers and baths, and your well water should be plenty for drinking and little hygiene." The fact is that authorities were attempting to keep the water flowing. In the meanwhile, UNICEF reaffirmed that Libyan government representatives were not destroying water infrastructure but rather were collaborating closely with a professional UN team to enable an evaluation of water wells, discuss immediate action options, and seek alternatives for water supplies. However, UNICEF estimated in September that the GMR interruption had left 4 million Libyans without access to safe drinking water. The GMR is still not functioning properly, and the water issue in Libya is becoming worse. Deliberately destroying a country's water infrastructure while knowing that doing so would cause a large number of fatalities among the populace as a direct result is not just a war crime, but also maybe a genocidal tactic. The common narrative of a just humanitarian war in Libya is seriously called into question, and mainstream media don't seem to be interested in or able to pose these issues. The Libyan crisis refers to the current humanitarian crisis and political military instability occurring in Libya, beginning with the Arab Spring protests of 2011, which led to a civil war, foreign military intervention, and the ousting and death of Muammar Qadhafi.